Hi, my name is Ralph Schuman. I'm an attorney. I'm a member of the DuPage Main Street Organization of Realtors Broker Lawyer Committee. I also serve on the task force drafting committee for the multi-board contract. I think we're now in the 6.1 version, so we've been doing this for a few years. I've worked with Joe Fortunato and others who are valuable resources in terms of developing the contract terms, and we're happy to see that that contract is being used in a widespread area. The question for discussion today is backup contracts. What's the procedure? What should we be doing with these backup contracts? How should they be handled? You know, the ethics requirements are that any offer that comes in be presented to the seller unless the seller has waived that opportunity to have those offers. So technically, an offer that comes in, even up to the closing, should be presented to that seller. But what about a backup contract that comes in? You may have a situation where there's a contract that's been formed that has the typical mortgage contingency, and it also will have an attorney review contingency if it's the 6.1 contract, and it will have the mortgage contingency, attorney review, and inspection contingencies all rolled into one there. What do you do if you have another backup contract that comes in and is accepted? First of all, I would draw your attention to paragraph 33, which is the cancellation of prior real estate contract in the multi-board 6.1 contract. That contract paragraph should be initialized if you're going to have a situation where it's a backup situation, because that backup contract cannot be accepted in isolation. It has to be made contingent upon cancellation of the first contract, the first buyer that's in the system, so to speak. And upon cancellation of that first one or termination of that first one for various reasons, say if they're unable to reach agreement under attorney review, for example, then the second buyer can move up to first position. Let's continue. Let's talk about how this paragraph 33 works. You'll see in the language of this contract in paragraph 33, lines 405 to 407, it says the seller's notice to the purchaser under the prior contract should not be served until after attorney review and professional inspections provisions of this contract have been expired, been satisfied, or waived. Let's talk about what that means. If they've expired just by the passage of time, it is possible then to move forward on this. If there's been no resolution on the attorney review issues or the inspection issues, and somebody sends a notice of termination, which they're able to do under the language of the contract, then that sets up the position of the backup contract. That second buyer can move into first position. The reference to waived is important. It's something that people don't pay attention to as often as they should. You can have a situation where somebody wants to come in and make a backup offer, have that contract be coming together contingent upon cancellation or termination of the first contract, and you could say to yourself, I really want this house. I really want this property. I'm so concerned about getting this that I want my offer to be more attractive, and therefore I'm going to waive the opportunity to go through attorney review and the opportunity to have any inspection issues raised. That all of a sudden makes that backup contract a lot more attractive to the buyer and increases the chances that if there's a difficulty with the first contract and things don't work out, that things will be moving along and that second buyer will have the opportunity to step up to first position. Let's distinguish briefly, just to kind of wrap up a few issues, between a backup offer and a backup contract. You can have multiple offers, and it's fine to entertain multiple offers and have those offers come in. And sometimes in the seller's market, you will have multiple offers coming in, but you shouldn't have multiple backup contracts. You should have your primary contract, and then you can have a secondary backup contract come in contingent upon cancellation or termination of the first contract. And I don't want to see situations where we have multiple backup contracts, because that process becomes unwieldy, it becomes unworkable. But you can have the primary contract, the backup contract in place, and multiple offers kind of waiting in the wings. That increases the pressure for that first buyer to work things out, and increases the chances that the second buyer who's got the backup contract can, as we say, move up to first position. Continuing on now, we're talking about some of the practical problems that you have out there in the field. How do you handle a situation where, say, your first contract comes in and it's got a mortgage contingency in there? It also has, of course, the typical attorney review contingency and the inspection contingency, and you're working through that. And then subsequent to that, a second offer comes in and a contract is going to be formed now, which is not going to be contingent upon mortgage financing. Let's say the buyer says, I'm going to buy cash, I'm going to opt for paragraph 36, and they're going to choose the option that says that it's going to be a cash deal in the normal, garden variety cash deal, and it's not going to be contingent upon financing. Under what circumstances, what time of notice is going to be given to the first buyer if that deal is not going forward? What's appropriate? Can you just terminate that first contract as soon as you get one that's a cash deal, because obviously that seems more attractive? Let's take that step by step, because this is an area that can be fraught with some sorts of problems here. First of all, if you have your first contract in place where you've got a mortgage contingency that's there, you're assumed to have accepted the possibility of proceeding to closing with someone who's going to be getting mortgage financing. The mere fact that another offer comes in that's a cash deal does not necessarily in and of itself give you that easy out, give you the ability to terminate that first contract. It is certainly something that you would have to discuss with the attorney for the seller to make sure that you are proceeding in accordance with the requirements. Unlike the paragraph in the contract, the optional paragraph that talks about contingency for the sale of buyer's real estate, for example, where you have the ability to send a kick-out notice, there is no kick-out notice provision built into that paragraph 8 that deals with mortgage financing. So if you have a situation where you're proceeding and you've worked through attorney review and you've gotten through the inspection phase and you're moving on, the mere fact that you get another contract offer that's a cash offer now may or may not give you the ability to move to that second buyer. It's an issue that you have to look at carefully, analyze in terms of the contract provisions, and make sure that you're consulting with an attorney, because it can be fraught with peril if you take precipitous action. We don't want to do something here that would be characterized as a bad faith termination, which would be along the lines of, say, terminating just because of purchase price. Yes, we're not talking about purchase price here. The cash offer, though, is more attractive, and you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you could be accused of acting in bad faith. So make sure that you consult with an attorney on that. What are the mechanics? Well, the notice that would have to go out would be, for example, if you're unable to reach approval or agreement under attorney approval, you could send a notice of termination, and that's the standard procedure. You can send that notice after your time period is expired, saying, we have not been able to reach agreement on the proposed modifications, therefore the contract is deemed terminated and null and void, earnest money returned, and then you can move forward and accept that, or move forward on that second contract, that backup contract. The form that would be used is available to everybody in the industry. It's the Mutual Cancellation Agreement. It's designed to be used with the Multi-Board 6.1 contract, and that could be used to designate that the parties have agreed that the contract is null and void, and it has a direction for the return of the earnest money. So that would be the mechanism that would be used there. Let's talk about the situation where you have that second offer and it's a cash deal. In that situation, you have to be very careful, as I said. I do not want to suggest to people that it's appropriate to simply terminate that first contract simply by virtue of the fact that a cash offer has come in. I guess my recommendation would be to consult with an attorney in that situation and proceed with caution. Let's continue to talk about the mechanics under that paragraph 33, cancellation of prior real estate contract. That obviously should be completed on the backup contract, because that can only go forward if it's designed to be contingent upon termination of the existing first contract. It talks about a date to be entered here, and it's a date by which written cancellation of the prior contract should be obtained. What's the date that's appropriate to put in there? Well, if the first contract, you're aware, is already in attorney review in the inspection period, you could say that the date to be entered into paragraph 33 would be shortly after the termination of those dates, if you think that it's going to be resolved quickly. You could, if you wanted to have that backup contract be in the wings waiting for any possible change or any possible eventuality, say, well, we want to have the date that's in there be the date of the closing that's set forth in the first one, if that backup buyer is willing to be that patient. The language I also want to draw your attention to in the second part of that paragraph, which talks about the notice should not be served until after attorney review and professional inspections have expired, satisfied, or waived. It's not a legal requirement that you wait that long. It is theoretically possible that you could serve your notice or have a date that's going to be earlier. You could send the notice of this prior to the expiration of the attorney review and professional inspections. But the reason that the 6.1 contract has that language is that it makes things very tricky and very dangerous. We think it's best to wait until expiration or waiver of the attorney review and professional inspections, simply because it makes it a lot cleaner and you have a much better chance of the backup contract, which is already going to be somewhat muddy waters in terms of the way these things are handled. You want to make sure you're traveling with clear vision on this. It's already going to be helpful if you have those periods expired or waived before you move forward with the backup contract. And again, make sure that you consult with the attorneys for the parties that are involved in the transaction, because there are some delicate legal issues that are involved in these kinds of situations. Thank you very much.